Singapore's Prime Minister speaks out on Sino-Japanese diplomatic crisis. Why is he urging China to go easy on Japan? On November 7th, during Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's international press conference, she pounded the table and declared that a Taiwan contingency is a contingency for Japan, even stating that the self-defense forces would take action if necessary. The already tenuous East Asian situation instantly boiled over. Unexpectedly, just 3 days later at the ASEAN Summit's public forum, the Prime Minister of Singapore openly appealed to China to go easy, literally, raise the hand high, on Japan in the presence of both Chinese and Japanese representatives. The Taiwan issue is a red line carved into China's sovereignty monument. Touching it is completely unacceptable. This kind of statement, which essentially advises the victim to yield to the aggressor, not only shocked the diplomatic community but also left countless Chinese people bewildered. Was this a genuine attempt to mediate for regional stability, or was Singapore merely acting clueless while pursuing its own self-interest? The situation is akin to a neighbor's child throwing a rock through your window and then threatening to smash your door, only for a mutual acquaintance to step in and advise you. Don't be so serious, they're just neighbors. Singapore's logic appears to be focused on regional stability, but it fails to grasp the key point. China was not the instigator. Japan actively crossed the red line. The so-called going easy is fundamentally asking the victim to compromise. Even more shocking and counterintuitive is the fact that 12 full days after Takaichi's provocative Taiwan contingency statement, she has not only failed to retract a single word in parliamentary debates and street speeches but has repeatedly reaffirmed no change in position. Even more ironic, Japan's supposed de-escalation effort was to dispatch a mid-level official, Masaki Kanjima, Director General of the Foreign Ministry's Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau, to rush to Beijing on November 19 for communication. The absence of the foreign minister himself highlights the lack of sincerity. Upon landing, Kanjima did not discuss apology or rectification. Instead, in his meeting with Chinese officials, he righteously demanded that China immediately lift restrictions on the import of Japanese aquatic products and cease patrol activities near the Diaoyu Islands. While Japan was adding fuel to the fire, the Singaporean Prime Minister stated clearly in an interview with the South China Morning Post on November 19 that Japan has shown a positive stance toward de-escalating the situation, and called on China to respond with an inclusive mentality. This judgment, which is completely divorced from reality, juxtaposing blatant aggression with whitewashed peacemaking, is more astonishing than the Sino-Japanese crisis itself. It is worth noting that on the very day Kanjima visited China, the Chinese General Administration of Customs announced data showing that the violation rate of Japanese food products imported into China had soared by 30% compared to the previous month. Is this what Japan calls de-escalation? Clearly, Singapore's statement is far from a simple error in judgment. It hides calculations of self-interest that go far beyond the surface of diplomacy, raising serious doubts about its claim to a neutral mediation stance. To understand Singapore's mysterious statement, one must first clarify the true nature of this Sino-Japanese dispute. Who lit the fire? Does Japan have any sincerity in extinguishing it? And where exactly does Singapore's calculation lie? Let's dissect the details and explain these questions thoroughly. The Sino-Japanese flashpoint, Japan's aggression and lack of sincerity. The powder keg in this Sino-Japanese crisis was personally ignited by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. On November 7th, her public declaration that a Taiwan contingency is a contingency for Japan, and her hint at using the self-defense forces to intervene, directly touched China's core red line. The Taiwan issue brooks no external interference. Even President Donald Trump refused to endorse her, merely saying when questioned, "Many of our allies are not friends," leaving Takaichi in an awkward position. Even more ironically, the Japanese Ministry of Defense just announced the withdrawal of the U.S. Typhoon missile system from Japan, yet Japan immediately raised its defense budget to 2% of GDP and rushed to buy American Tomahawk cruise missiles. This is not an attempt to de-escalate. This is preparing ammunition. Compared to the attitude of Western countries on sovereignty issues, Japan's provocation seems even more absurd. Britain did not hesitate to go to war with Argentina over the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands, and France has zero tolerance for separatist rhetoric on the Corsica issue. These nations understand that sovereignty is the foundation of the state. Yet, Japan does the opposite. On one hand, it reneges on historical issues. Abe once claimed, "Class A war criminals are not war criminals," and Takaichi frequently visits the Yasukuni shrine. On the other hand, it points fingers at the sovereignty issues of other countries. China's countermeasures, suspending Japanese aquatic product imports and stepping up patrols around the Diaoyu Islands, have cost Japan's tourism industry over 2 trillion yen in a single month. Yet, Takaichi stubbornly insists, "I will not retract my statement." The Singaporean PM's claim that China cannot let go of historical hatred is a complete distortion of facts. Those who genuinely refuse to let go of history, and even wish to reverse it, have always been the Japanese right wing. Singapore's stance, a reality check based on interests first. Singapore's statement is essentially driven by the realistic consideration of interests first. As a small Southeast Asian nation, Singapore's economic lifeline is tied to regional trade. Its trade volume with China is over $100 billion in 2024, and its dealings with Japan amount to over $30 billion. It wants to maintain access to the large Chinese market but also fears offending Japan and affecting ASEAN cooperation. This trying to please both sides mentality is similar to Germany's predicament in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, dependent on Russian energy but afraid to defy the Western Bloc, resulting in a wavering position that pleases no one. However, Singapore forgot a crucial point: the bottom line of diplomacy is respect for sovereignty. Just as Germany would never allow another country to interfere in the affairs of Bavaria, China will never tolerate Japan interfering in Taiwan. Conflating sovereign interference with historical issues and advising the victim to go easy makes this mediation not only insincere but also an act that crosses China's red line. The most outrageous part is that Singapore tried to link the Sino-Japanese conflict to the US-China competition, claiming that US policy is key to stability in the Taiwan Strait. But the truth is, the US has no intention of getting deeply involved this time. When meeting in Tokyo, Trump once walked past the Japanese flag, ignoring Takaichi's salutation, and when asked about the Sino-Japanese crisis, he avoided answering, only emphasizing, "My relationship with China is very good." This speaks volumes. The US wants to use Japan as a chess piece to contain China but will absolutely not pay the price for Japan's aggressive rhetoric. A look at US arms sales data to Japan makes this even clearer. In 2025, US arms sales to Japan surged by 40%, selling entirely offensive weapons like Tomahawk missiles. The US is not seeking stability. It wants to profit from arms sales and let Japan become the East Asian Ukraine. Singapore's forceful inclusion of the US is merely an attempt to obscure the core of the conflict. But this approach will only complicate the issue, as the root of this crisis is the resurgence of Japan's far-right ideology, not a byproduct of US-China rivalry. Japan's insincerity, an international reckoning. Japan's insincerity has already been noticed by the international community. Foreign Ministry official Masaki Kanjima, sent by Takaichi, made no apology upon arriving in China, instead demanding that China cancel its countermeasures. Takaichi herself, at the G20 summit, played the victim by claiming China was threatening freedom in the Indo-Pacific, and called for a boycott of Chinese rare earth minerals. This logic of committing an error and then acting aggressively is untenable even among Western nations. Former German Chancellor Willy Brandt earned global respect by kneeling in Warsaw for Nazi crimes, demonstrating sincere reflection. In stark contrast, Japan not only erected monuments for war criminals but also elevated the descendants of Class A war criminals to the position of Prime Minister. This fundamental difference in historical attitude is the root cause of China's strong reaction. Fu Song, China's permanent representative to the United Nations, has already issued a clear warning, If Japan intervenes militarily in the Taiwan Strait, it will be an act of aggression, and China will certainly respond with its right to self-defense. This is not being relentless. It is the bottom line of defending sovereignty. Peace in East Asia is never achieved by the victim going easy, but by the offender acknowledging their mistake and the rule follower standing firm. Singapore's initial intention for mediation may have been good, but it chose the wrong target and blurred the lines between right and wrong. If Japan continues to be obstinate, it will only go further down an aggressive path and ultimately pay a more painful price. Now it's your turn to speak. How do you think Singapore should correctly mediate the Sino-Japanese crisis? Will Japan's aggressive rhetoric lead to more severe consequences? Click to follow us, get the latest updates on Sino-Japanese relations immediately, type your opinion in the comments section, and discuss it with millions of netizens. Thank you for reading and interacting. See you next time.